Welcome to the 8th annual Dekaban lecture. This lecture is on the Warsaw Uprising, the museum thereof. It's rather fitting that in fact this is the topic. Dr. Anatol Dekaban, after whom the lecture series is named, was himself a soldier in the uprising. He fought in the uprising, and after the war, because of his anti-communist views, he was forced to leave. Dr. Dekaban finished medical school in Warsaw in 1939, which was a great year for trauma medicine. He joined the underground and served as a physician with the Home Army. After the war, when he was forced to flee his homeland, he came to the United States, did work in England, where he married Pamela Little, got a PhD at McGill University, and spent almost his entire career at the NIH, National Institute of Health. He became the founder of pediatric neurology in the world and wrote the first definitive work on the subject. He did some very important, groundbreaking research. After he retired, he said, you know, I haven't done anything for Poland. I left Poland. I made a very successful career. I'd like to do something. He went back to Poland just when Solidarity had been crushed. And he saw food lines, hunger. And so he said, what Poland needs is a better agricultural system. So he went to the University of British Columbia, where he had taught for a year. He was now retired on Whidbey Island off the Pacific coast off Seattle, and gave them $1 million and said, here, I want you to establish an exchange program for young faculty from Canada, from Poland, to come to Canada to study the latest agricultural techniques. Then when communism fell, he said what Poland needs now is a new economic system. So he went to the school, Adam Smith School of Economics at Glasgow University, and gave them $1 million and said, start an exchange program with the Economics University in Warsaw. And then finally, in 1993, he said what Poland needs is a modern engineering education. Polish products have to be competitive in the world. And so he went to the University of Michigan and gave them $1 million, the engineering school, and set up a similar exchange program with the engineering college, the University of Technology at Warsaw. As he got older, he asked me to take over the oversight of the 3 exchange programs. And so one of the programs of the Piast Institute is to provide general oversight for the management of these 3 exchange programs. And so in his honor, we annually have a lecture to commemorate not only his career as a patriot, a soldier for Poland, a great researcher, but also his generosity to Polish education. The exchange programs are working marvelously. Our speaker this evening is a person I know very well. He's my oldest son. He's a historian, like his father. When he was growing up, he once asked me a question at the age of 5. He probably tires of hearing this, but I was about to answer the question, and he said, but don't tell me too much. Well, now he tells me too much. He's written 13 books, written or is the sole author or co-author. He writes on Polish and European history, as well as American history. He's written on American immigration history. This is a topic that has engaged him for now about a year. He's very interested because of his background in public history. He took his PhD at Arizona State, first degree in public history and historical editing, and then a PhD in history. Because of his background in public history, he's very interested in the way in which history is presented to the public. And so he went to Poland and studied the museum and has prepared a analysis of its structure and its message. So without any further ado, because we want to get this process moving, I give you Dr. John Radzilowski speaking on complete education and remembrance.
Thank you all, and thank you all for coming on this blustery evening, and thanks to the Piast Institute for inviting me. I'm always happy to be back in Michigan, and also thank you to Wayne State University for providing the venue. And my talk today, I'm going to focus on the question of public historical memory and how and why that the Warsaw Uprising is crucial for public memory in Poland. So my talk is not going to deal so much with the particulars of the uprising, although I'll talk a little bit about that, but more on how it's remembered or misremembered or has been misremembered, and the role of the Museum of the Rising, which opened in 2004, may play in that process. And as I go along, I'll show you a few photographs so you don't have to look at me the whole time. These are photographs that I took actually about almost exactly 1 year ago when I was in Warsaw, and of the museum and some of the other monuments around the city of Warsaw. So I'll try to do this in 4 parts. The first part, I'll try to explain what I mean by historical memory, why it's important, and the role that it plays in politics and culture. Secondly, I'll briefly discuss the uprising and why it became such an important event for public memory in Poland, why its memory was suppressed, and how it's reemerged as an important feature of public memory today. Third, I'll describe the museum and how it addresses the question of memory, both its problems and its successes. And last of all, I'll conclude by discussing the implications for how historical memory is changing in Poland in light of contemporary political and cultural developments. So the first part is, what is historical memory? What do I mean by this term? And I'll try to define this very simply. It's how a society, a nation, or a cultural or ethnic group understands, remembers, and transmits its own historical experiences. And one of the obvious ways that this can happen is through education. What's in the schools. Now, I'll use some examples. I teach both a variety of history courses, and I've taught for a number of years American history surveys to undergraduates, both at UAS and previously at a number of other universities where I taught. So education is an obvious thing. Well, what's taught in the schools? What's in the textbooks? What's in the curricula? Especially official curricula. If you look at the state standards, almost all states now have education standards for history, government, and other things that supposedly, very often, they're done by committee, so everything, including the kitchen sink, is thrown into them.